Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight.
The family of a man killed during the Easter holidays speaking out.
NIB cracking down on employers who neglect to pay contributions.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. An environmentalist is tonight expressing outrage over a report that found several Carnival Corporation cruise ships discharged nearly 500,000 gallons of treated sewage into Bahamian waters in 2017. The report comes just 3 years after the company was fined $40 million by a U.S. court and placed on probation after it pleaded guilty to numerous charges stemming from illegally dumping oily bilge water in the ocean and attempting to cover up its actions.
I was absolutely sickened.
Save the Bay's chairman Joseph Darwell expressing disgust that this type of activity could happen in Bahamian waters with basically no repercussions. The report, conducted by Stephen Solau, who was appointed by a U.S. district judge to monitor Carnival Corporation during its 5-year probation, found that over 450,000 gallons were discharged in Bahamian waters in June 2017 alone. His report found that approximately 1,270 cubic meters of treated black water and 22 cubic meters of comminuted food waste were discharged inside Bahamian waters in violation of MARPOL and company procedures between June 4, 2017 and June 16, 2017. Solau's report also noted several other discharges from Carnival Corporation cruise ships, including one that was deemed accidental in July 2017, where there was a discharge of treated black water from Carnival Vista while sailing through the Old Bahama Channel. The report said crew was made aware of baseline issues, properly planned, and briefed multiple times. When the officer on watch realized the mistake, he immediately stopped all discharge operations and self-reported.
Now, when something like that happens in our country, it means that there is a tremendous disregard for our country generally. I'm hoping that Carnival will come out and say that this is not so. But the fact is that it has been reported. Apparently, there's some evidence there to verify this. It speaks more to the neglect of our own country.
Darwell, who was also the president of the Waterkeepers of the Bahamas, expressed support for Carnival Cruise Line's proposed development for Grand Bahama back in February. But after seeing this report,
that's why it made me sick this morning, because just knowing that we were intending to support the development in Grand Bahama for Carnival for the Grand Port, that put a kind of bitter taste in my mouth this morning when I read that report. And that, of course, will arise when we meet with Carnival with respect to the development in Grand Bahama, to know that they cannot do that in my waters. Those are your waters there, the people's waters in the Bahamas.
In a statement, Carnival Corporation said, "These issues were unacceptable failures in our processes that were not in accordance with our policies and procedures and do not reflect the culture we have built at Carnival Corporation and across our 9 cruise line brands. We take the issues raised very seriously and we are vigorously addressing those issues. We remain deeply committed to meeting all expectations under the ECP and demonstrating our dedication to environmental leadership." In the end, Darwell insists government must take action and put in place an Environmental Protection Act.
If that were done close to the coast of the United States, Carnival would have been fined $20 million at least dollars to do that.
Now, they were fined before and they were on probation when this happened.
Well, there you go. But we cannot do diddly squat. We can't even fine them 1 cent because there is no regulations that would permit us to do that, unfortunately. So I cry for my government to institute an Environmental Protection Act, a Freedom of Information Act, so all of this info. Why does it take 2 years for us to find that out?
Meanwhile, former Transport and Aviation Minister Gladys Hannah-Martin says the issue has very serious implications for the Bahamas. She urged the Minister administration to effectively address the matter. Jasmine Brown has that angle.
Hannah-Martin says the last thing she believes the Minister administration should do is turn a blind eye to the reported conduct of Carnival Cruise Lines.
This raises very serious risk factors for the country.
Hannah-Martin was responding to news that several Carnival Corporation cruise ships dumped black water into Bahamian waters in 2017. According to a report from a court-appointed monitor, over 450,000 gallons were discharged in the Bahamas in June of that year alone. Hannah Martin called the reports worrisome and insisted the right checks and balances must be put in place, considering the Minnis administration recently signed 2 agreements with major cruise lines.
Whatever happens and whatever the facts are, we should always consistently send a message that we value our marine resource and we will not tolerate abuses of our environment, particularly releasing of ballast water and sewage, because apart from a lot of these things also end up on the coast. They don't just, they end up in the coast, and then that creates a whole new scenario to islands. And so, I think it's something that the government has to look very closely at.
Minister of Tourism Dionisio de Aguilar has said that new legislation may be necessary in light of reports that Carnival cruise ships dumped nearly 500,000 gallons of sewage in Bahamian waters. Hannah Martin says at this point, the government needs to also look at current legislation to examine possible repercussions for Carnival.
We are also signatories to MARPOL, and so it seems to me that there are provisions in the law currently that will give the government a foundation upon which to take action.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
All right, thanks, Jasmine. In other news, 4 young girls lost their father on Easter Monday when police say he was shot and killed in the Chippenham area during the early morning hours. Tonight, his distraught family is speaking out. Jared Higgs reports.
Now, according to police, it was shortly after midnight on Easter Monday when they got word that a man was shot on Forster Street in Chippenham. When they responded, they found a man with injuries to his body who had died on the scene. Now, neighbors say that they heard a noise about 15 minutes before those shots rang out. They say later on, when they looked out the window, they saw their neighbor, who they say had recently moved to the area, laying on the ground.
I still can't believe Brian dead yet.
Family members told Our News that the victim is 34-year-old Brian Smith, a father of 4 girls and a plumber by trade. Smith's aunt, Sylvia Smith, was in disbelief as she recalled the close relationship she shared with her nephew. She says when she heard the news of his death, she caught the first flight from Cat Island to Nassau.
He'll make you laugh and he'll do things. Sometimes I could call Brian anytime, and if I'll die on the island, I could say, Brian, I need you to do something for me. What it is, Artie? What you want me to do? I say, I want you to go get me this, go get me that. He said, no problem.
Smith's mother, whom his aunt left in Cat Island on Monday, is said to be shocked by the news of her son's death. His brother is also not in New Providence as he works on a quay near Bimini and can't leave until next week.
He's humble. He don't bother nobody, so that's why we don't understand this.
Smith's cousin, LaShandell Smith, says she spoke to him less than an hour before his death. She says the pair were more like brother and sister, and she's especially sad for his 4 daughters, who range in age from 15 to 3 years old.
She was a daddy's girl. So I know she could be the she could be the one to take her daughters when she don't see her daddy.
Like her aunt, Smith's grieving cousin was incredulous.
The only thing I could see is him smiling as a sly, crooked smile. That's all. Happy person. That's all I could see.
It's really hard to say goodbye to you, Brian, but I can miss people.
According to Our News records, Smith's killing and the shooting death of a man near Bonefish Pond hours earlier marked the 20th and 21st murders of 2019. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
A white police officer in Florida was placed on restricted administrative assignment and was reportedly ordered to surrender his gun and badge following widespread outrage over a video of him pepper spraying, punching, and slamming a 15-year-old Bahamian boy. The video has over 5 million views on Twitter, prompting Florida politicians, the NAACP, and celebrities including LeBron James to speak out. In the video, officers from Broward County are seen outside J.P. Taravella High School. The officer pepper sprays the teen and slams him onto the pavement. Another officer then jumps into the frame and slams the boy's head onto the pavement. The teen's mother spoke with NBC6 in South Florida.
He made it seem like, my son was at fault, but when I see what really happened, I was in such a shock.
The teen was treated at an area hospital and has reportedly been charged with assault, resisting arrest, and trespassing. His mother told media in Florida that she was stunned that her son was charged with assault on a law enforcement officer.
When I see what really happened, I was in such a shock, my heart, I couldn't even cry. I didn't even sleep yet. It's like I'm still up from yesterday. I couldn't believe it because I expect the police to protect us, not to hurt us. So it hurt me. My heart hurt. And any mother see their son or their child on the news, they will react the same way.
On Friday, Broward County Sheriff Gregory Toney said his department was conducting a full investigation. Family members of the boy have set up a GoFundMe page in an effort to have the charges against him dropped. Well, faced with the threat of depleted reserves in 10 years, the National Insurance Board is cracking down on employers who fail to pay their workers NIB contributions. NIB Minister Brenzel Rose said their actions are bordering on criminal. Jillian Gray has more.
Speaking outside cabinet today, the minister responsible for national insurance said his ministry is aggressively going after those employers who neglect to pay NIB contributions.
Are we going to aggressively go after those persons
who take money from employees?
Absolutely. That is so unfair and unacceptable. It is perhaps bordering on criminal. If I take your monies from you to make a contribution to your Social Security network, and you get sick and suddenly finds out, listen, my contributions were not paid, then that's an issue.
NIB's 2016 annual report revealed that the fund experienced a deficit of more than $11 million, which led to a decline in reserves. At that time, contribution income decreased by $2.4 million when compared to the previous year. The International Labor Organization has warned that the fund would not be able to sustain pension benefits beyond 2029. The ILO suggested a contribution increase from 6.2% to 10%.
I don't know that we will ever run out of funding. What I do know is if our contributions are not being equal to our benefits, only two things could happen. Either we could ask you to increase your contributions so that we could pay your benefits, or we have to decrease your benefits to become equal to your contributions.
He added that they will have to make some critical decisions to ensure the fund's sustainability.
We are paying out more benefits than contributions we're taking in. So that's gonna require some intervention. We're looking at what those options are at NIB, and we anticipate that the Bahamian public will be aware very shortly.
As Roll slammed employers who fail to pay, he encouraged employees to ensure that contributions deducted from their pay are actually being paid to NIB.
There is a means by which you could go to NIB and go online to see whether your contributions are being paid. So you don't wait for NIB.
Reporting for our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
All right, thanks, Jillian. Still to come, Cabinet approves the introduction of the Marco Alert System. Plus, the National Security Minister hits back at claims officers aren't trained to operate a new radar. Stay tuned.